So what's America like in 2020? Well, if you listen to the Euro trash, the United States is a seething hellhole of drug addicts, psychopathic killers, and wandering homeless packs armed to the teeth. If you were to listen to the corporate-controlled media, it's a place of new challenges and exciting beginnings. But if you listen to a punk on the street, well, it's neither one, but rather a mix of the both. So today, let's take a look at what things are really like in the future of America in the year 2020. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Nathan here in the Lore Lounge, and today we're going to be taking a look at the history of America in the Cyberpunk universe, leading up to the events of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, if you like our content, please subscribe, as we will be giving you all the Cyberpunk lore leading up to the release of Cyberpunk 2077. Also, leave a like and let us know what content you want to see discussed in the Cyberpunk universe. Now, all of this American history here is taken straight from the Night City 2020 Sourcebook written by Mike Pondsmith. Now let's start first with the physical parameters. During the last 30 years, a series of ecological disasters has taken the greatest toll on the United States infrastructure. Global warming has melted much of the polar ice caps, resulting in a higher sea level, and large parts of the East Coast and South are now underwater or partially swampland. New Orleans is on stilts, and Houston has an alligator population. Rising temperatures have thawed out much of the southern Alaska, central Canada, and upper US. These are the new breadbasket areas, producing the verdant fields of bioengineered grain that is the basis of much of the US economy. However, these same changes in climate have dried up even more areas than they have helped. In the Great Plains and Southwest, whole regions have become desert in only a few years. Unhampered by tree cover, violent winds scour the land with driving sandstorms. The Pacific Northwest has suffered through 20 years of drought-stricken forests and water shortages. From Seattle to San Diego, the main issue is water. How much, who owns it, and where to get more. In Los Angeles, shifting ocean currents have diverted rainfall from the Central Coast. The result is dense ground fogs mixing with smog to create an acidic, poisonous soup over the LA basin. Only 60 miles away, the same shifting current has left San Diego a desert city. Night City, straddling the area between NorCal and SoCal, gets a mix of everything: sweltering dry summers and cold, dry winters, punctuated by periodic acid rainstorms and choking, poisonous ground smogs. And it doesn't stop there. Sloppy pollution controls in the latter half of the 20th century left permanent environmental scars. Massive acid rain storm fronts still batter the Midwest, poisoning drinking water and crops. Two entire regions of the eastern seaboard are wasteland, as power companies abandoned nuclear reactors during the collapse and let their contents leak into the water table. Abortive rock strides from the ESA's lunar-based mass drivers have obliterated Tampa and Colorado Springs. The explosive impacts blasted millions of tons of dust and heat into the atmosphere to further aggravate global warming. Toxic spills on both coasts, the dumping of medical waste from the years of the wasting plague, all of these have contributed to a steep die-off of ocean life, including marine mammals, food fish, and the phytoplankton necessary to replenish Earth's oxygen supply. Plagues have decimated large sections of the population. The AIDS problem in the 1990s escalated into the AIDS II crisis of the early 2000s. Stalling by politicians and academic infighting among researchers delayed a cure so long that in the intervening years, the disease mutated to a more virulent form. The wasting plague, now known to be a tailored bioweapon developed by several Arab nations during the Middle East meltdown, further reduced the population until it stabilized at its current level of 195 million people. Now let's take a look at the government. The United States is pretty much a nation in name only. Of its three branches, the executive branch is the only effective part of the federal government. It contains the military. Now, the executive branch is governed by a host of advisors and appointed agency heads. For the last three administrations, the president has been chosen in a back room. It doesn't really matter. Only 12.6% of the US population bothers to vote anymore, and that's only in the states that are still part of the Union. Both of the Californias, Texas, Utah, Alaska, and Nevada have become what are called free states. They pretty much set their own rules and write their own laws while giving lip service to the idea of United States, as long as the honchos in Washington don't try to tell them what to do. The Supreme Court has absolutely no effect on the laws of the United States. With the resurgence of states' rights, local law supersedes federal law in all but the Uniform Civilian Justice Code. Congress isn't much better off. Most states don't even bother to send representatives to the House, and there hasn't been a census in 15 years, and no one can determine congressional districts anymore. There's still a Senate, made up of senators from each state in the remaining union. Some places elect theirs, others simply keep the same guys in office year after year. Congress's real power comes in its ability to legislate U.S. business and trade law, rules for international corporations operating in the U.S., banking law, communications and transportation law, trade laws and international tariffs, it's a lucrative position, with the international megacorps trading cash and favors for legal advantages. Although the US government doesn't control what happens in the states, it still controls the borders of the US. A powerful volunteer military makes sure of this. The federal government has a loose taxation structure to maintain the Washington infrastructure and the military. In practice, each state collects its own taxes, then sends a proportion of its state revenues to Washington. How much varies state by state and its clout in Washington. For example, the powerful Pacific Northwestern states pay high taxes in exchange for nearly complete autonomy, while the economically devastated Eastern Seaboard pays low taxes but is constantly towing the federal line. Now, the states themselves, 24 years after the collapse, most states are busy making their own way in the world and thumbing their noses at Washington, D.C. State governments vary wildly all over the US. In most of the South, they remain unchanged. Good old boy networks passing cronyist laws that keep the rest of the population in the dark. In the Pacific Northwest, there are actual elections complete with campaigns and candidates. The East Coast and Midwest are a jumble of political wards, local machines, and lobbyists for the most powerful corporations and citizens. Elections are infrequent and usually corrupt. The Western and Mountain states are probably the most honest. There's not much to steal and the public has little patience with political shenanigans. The one thing that all of these state governments seem to have in common is a governor, a state assembly, or some kind of senate, and it's lots of lobbyists. Having a state capital is probably a good thing. It keeps the worst political elements in one place where you can keep an eye on them. Now, all of the state governments collect taxes, and these are usually taken directly from the cities, which raise their shares through sales taxes, license fees, and bribes, and illegal activities. For their tax dollars, most states provide a state militia for defense, usually former National Guard armed with used and somewhat out-of-date hardware. The Guard is only brought in when a city government has lost control. Some states also maintain freeways, bridges, and transportation services. These are all usually delegated to the contractor who pays the highest bribe. The Free State of Northern California actually has its own state-run Caltrans department, which accounts for its uniformly well-cared-for roads. Most states have a state police. Depending on the region, these can be a highway patrolman or rangers who control the freeways but have little authority in the cities, or a powerful state police agency which has spies in every city and has arrest powers in all municipalities. Thanks for watching, guys. Next episode, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on what the cities are like in the Cyberpunk 2077 universe, and we will be segueing further into the history and lore of Night City. If you know by now, if you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more of our videos, hit the notification and subscribe. Let us know any of your comments and thoughts on the Cyberpunk universe as a whole in the comments below. And as always, thanks for joining us in the Lore Lounge.